well this morning and that you have survived the cold that we've had, and we had some very unpleasant wind on Monday, and I hope you're all okay with that. And thank you for taking the time to spend with me this morning. I really do appreciate it and enjoy your company and your input. We've had a request to chat about difficult conversations, navigating difficult conversations. So a couple of things. We go back to good communication skill, and there are a couple of things. So whether this conversation is with your partner, with a colleague, a housemate, a friend, family, or the neighbor, for argument's sake, there are certain things that we need to keep in mind when we are going to have a difficult conversation. And that difficult conversation, normally we associate it with confrontation. And it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It just has to be a discussion. So certain common principles, excuse me, apply when we are going to have a difficult conversation, or a conversation that can potentially become unpleasant with someone. So the first one is, don't ambush the person. Don't, when he or she walks in the door, say, we're going to talk. Rather, let them know and say, listen, Susie or Peter or Paul, I would like to chat to you about, and then you say what you want to talk about. When will it be convenient for you to sit down with me so we can talk about this? Because there is such a thing as a right time and a wrong time. We all know that, if somebody's had a difficult day at work or upset with someone else, it is not really the best time to now heap more coals on the fire by approaching that person and saying, I now want to talk about your issue that you have. So let them know, don't ambush them. And as I say, ask that person, when would it be possible for them and convenient for them to sit with you and talk about whatever the issue is, because there is a right time and a wrong time. Next, never start the conversation with an attack. Never start with, you are always, or you never. Start rather by painting a picture. I go back to the often acronym that I use, and you say often, observe. I have noticed, I see that you have done X, Y, Z, and this is how it makes me feel. And I think it would be good if we can talk this through so we can better understand it. And then say what you need from that person. So the often acronym that we have chatted about. Give the other person the opportunity to respond without interrupting to what you have said. So if that person is saying something that you don't agree with or doesn't sit well with you, don't interrupt with your comment that you want to make. Let them finish. If that requires of you to have a piece of paper during this conversation so you can make notes that you want to points that you want to come back to when it is your turn to speak, then do that. Otherwise, there is a risk that you forget, and then afterwards you feel, oh gosh, I never raised this, and it's something that I also wanted to talk about and to perhaps clarify. So, as I say, let the other person speak without interrupting. And then when you speak, you can say, look, I didn't interrupt you. Would you mind very much if I say all I need to say right now? And then you can respond to this. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, in the other person's position. Very often, we are so preoccupied, so focused on our position, our take on a situation, our hurt, our upset, that we forget to view the situation from the other person's perspective. Because if we can do that honestly and openly, do that, you may come to understand why the other person said or did what they did. You may not, but there is a chance that you perhaps will have a better, and doesn't mean you agree with what they said or did. It just means you understand how they came to the point where they behaved in that particular way. So try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. Remember, when it comes to difficult conversations, not everybody is 100% wrong or 100% right. You are not 100% right, and the other person is not 100% wrong, and vice versa. So if you start and navigate a difficult conversation whilst being aware of the fact that you may well be not 100% correct, it immediately opens you to an agreeable outcome, if I can put it that way, to a solution. And you are not looking at the other person through the eyes of accusation that has no wiggle room. The other person is 100% wrong. He or she shouldn't have said and shouldn't have done it. There's no excuse for it, etc., etc. You are saying, I know I have a good valid point that I want to discuss, but the other person may also have a good and valid point that I'm not understanding or have not noticed or am unaware of. So that puts you where you can find the compromise, the good outcome. Always allow the other person, or persons if this is obviously more than one person involved, to leave with their dignity intact. So when it comes to difficult conversations, listener, there cannot be any name calling, there cannot be character assassination, and of course swearing and carrying on, because that invariably leads to the other person doing the same, and it becomes a slanging match. Who can insult the other one more, and who can have the better colourful language to degrade and insult the other person with. So avoid that. If the other person starts doing that, then ask that person, say, look, could we not name call? Could we not swear at each other? Could we just stick to what happened, to the facts of the matter? And facts should be not ambiguous. If I say to you, the sun is shining this morning, well, you may have wished for an overcast rainy day, but the fact is the sun is shining. It's a fact that's agreed upon by everyone. So try and keep to the facts. And also the other thing, stay on point. It's not a good idea to say, well, 6 months ago and last year. Don't dig up the past. You should have addressed that at the time that occurred. And that's the other thing I want to mention. If something has occurred that doesn't sit well with you, address it as soon as is practically possible. Don't wait till it's happened for the 9th time and now you have an issue with it and you want to go back to the first time it has happened. You should have addressed it then. So don't dig up the past. Stay on point, keep it relevant to the incident you are referring to. And listener, again, you were not specific in any shape or form, so I'm speaking very generally. I'm giving you an idea of what to do and what not to do in difficult conversations, but in a particular set of circumstances, there obviously could be things that is not applicable with what I'm sharing. The other person may have done something so outrageous that it makes it difficult to leave wiggle room, but those are the exceptions. And even on those outrageous, or in those outrageous situations, if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes and try to get some understanding for them, it would soften your attitude in the difficult conversation, which would go a long way to finding a workable outcome, as opposed to going there wanting to draw blood. Okay, so as I say, always allow the other person to leave with his or her dignity intact. No character assassination, no name calling, no swearing, no tantrums, etc. Communication must be open. So say what you are thinking and feeling in terms that the other person can understand, and that does not require of the other person to read between the lines. Don't place hidden threats in your communication. Let me think. You know what will happen if you do that, or so that was a good idea in your opinion. Where reading between the lines, you are saying that was an utterly stupid thing to do and you're an idiot for having done it. Don't go there. Rather be open and say, what you did, from where I'm sitting and from my experience of that, I experienced that as hurtful or as insulting or whatever the case may be. But don't have hidden threats in your communication. Don't leave things hanging so that person has to read between the lines. Be as open and use terms that are not emotionally charged. We have talked about emotional intelligence, and as I've explained, if you say or do something when your emotions are heightened, you are probably going to say the wrong thing. You are probably going to say it in the wrong way, and it's going to result in more harm than good. It is going to take you further away from your desired outcome rather than get you nearer your desired outcome. Be clear in your own mind about what you want to achieve with the outcome. So just confronting someone for the sake of confronting them and watching them squirm is not a good idea. One, it can certainly backfire, may not turn out that way. And secondly, at the end of it, you have really done more harm to a relationship. The other person is not going to think better of you in any shape or form for having humiliated them. So be clear about what you want from this conversation. Decide on how you want to approach it before the conversation happens. So you have an idea of the structure of the conversation. And make value statements. Say, I appreciate honesty. I appreciate the quality of the relationship we have. I do not enjoy being lied to. I would like to feel more affection from you because I need you to show me how you feel about me. Those value statements also, not only do they articulate how you feel and what's important to you in the conversation, it also helps the other person to see where you're coming from. If I'm having a tiff with let's say my hubby has been working late and when he comes home he's tired and that sort of thing, I can say to him, well, you never helping, you are, always tired, you always come home late from work, and I'm always doing everything on my own, etc., etc. Or I can say, you know what, my sweetheart, I really miss you. I really would love to spend more time with you so that we can talk about things that are important to both of us, because I am missing you around the house and I'm missing being with you. He is going to receive that a lot better than the attack about how terrible he is, how insensitive he is, and how inconsiderate he is. So you see what I mean with couching what you want to say in terms that is acceptable to the other person, and again will open the other person to the conversation. Instead of shutting them down and thinking this is just going to be another reaming session where you're going to rail at me and I'm not going to get a word in edgeways, and whatever I say you're not going to be interested in hearing anyway because you have made up your mind. And there's another key thing. If you have made up your mind before the conversation happens that you're really not interested in the other person's excuses and explanations because you are ticked off, and that's all they need to know, as that you are not best pleased with them and you are seriously ticked off, that's pointless. Then don't have the conversation and be ticked off and walk away from the relationship. But if you really want to navigate, now the term navigate obviously also conjures up let's say sailors on a ship and the navigator saying, no, adjust your course 6 degrees to the left, decrease the speed. adjust the course so many degrees north, northeast. It's tweaking speed and direction all the way to find the best passage to get to your destination. And that is what you need to do with a difficult conversation. Be vigilant about where the other person is at. What are they open to receive? What is going to shut them down? And then tweak your conversation with a little bit more subtle here, a little bit more nuance there, a little bit more explanation from your side. And that way you navigate your way to an outcome that is workable for everyone involved, because difficult conversations ought not to be a win-lose situation where I tell that person exactly where they stand and, and they now know who they're dealing with, kind of thing. That does not achieve a lot in a relationship. And I assume this is a friendship / romantic relationship as opposed to a professional relationship. So if I have a tiff with my best friend or with my husband, the outcome I want is for the relationship, for us to have a better understanding afterwards of each other, and the same amount, if not more, respect. I would like my friend to have more respect for me as a human being, as somebody she can trust. And that's another aspect of difficult relationship. You want to build trust. So if I approach my friend openly, honestly, with tenderness, with consideration for where she's coming from, she's going to trust me next time when I say, let's talk. Or she's going to trust me to come to me and say, Lee, there's something I want to talk about, and are you open to it? Because the boot can be on the other foot, where somebody has to come to me and say, Lee, you said or did X, Y, and Z, and it upset me. Can we talk about it? And the same would apply. I need to be open and say, yes, of course. How does tomorrow afternoon suit you, or whenever it would be convenient for me, not to be perhaps have time constraints or whatever, to talk to that, and then to be able to put why I said or did it. So remember, the boot can be on the other foot. And how would you like to be approached if that were the case? How would you like someone to say to you, well, you know what, Chantel, I want to talk to you about something that's bothering me. Are you going to get your hackles up and go in all defensive with all the excuses in the world, or are you going to go in open and say, well, let me listen to what she has to say. I will do my best to explain where I was coming from, and if needs be, I will apologize. Because if you can, at the end of it, where applicable, say, you know what, you're right, I never realized that what I said impacted you like that, and I'm really sorry. I apologize unreservedly. Then people trust you, and you can trust yourself to have that strength, if I can call it that, to have that self-worth to say, yeah, I was wrong. There may be other times we say, you know what, I'm sorry that you experienced it, that was not my intention, but I still stand by what I said. But you have to be sure about those things. So clarity about what you want to achieve. Decide how you want to approach the discussion. Make some value statements. As I say, with difficult conversations, because they're difficult right at the start, before they've even been had, you know it's going to be a difficult conversation. Don't go in defensive. Don't go in aggressive. Go in open to listen to the other person, open to explaining your emotions and your experience in a way that the other person can hear. Don't interrupt the other person. Let them speak. Don't make them feel what they have to say is unimportant. You don't want to hear it, you're not going to believe it, because then the conversation really is pointless. So I hope these things helped you, listener, with navigating a difficult conversation. If that is too general, please feel free to send in another request and say, could you narrow it down to a conversation between colleagues, or a conversation between friends, or whatever. Or, of course, you may contact me and we can keep it confidential and more personal. But thank you so much. Please, listeners, send in your requests. I just love it. And let's talk about the things that are important to you. Or if you know of someone who's battling with something and you think they could benefit from hearing more about how to handle a specific situation, then please send that in too. You can send it to Ryan at South Coast Radio, and as I say, you can contact me on 082 330 2439, and it would be my pleasure and privilege to help you. But again, thank you for spending the time with me this morning. I don't take it for granted. It really is special. And I thank you and wish you a very pleasant rest of today, a very pleasant weekend. Stay warm and stay safe.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.